Welcome to the Well-Seasoned Librarian podcast. I'm Dean Jones, the host, and this is Season 6, Episode 9 of the program. Today on this episode, we are talking to baker Arturo Enciso of Gusto Bread. It is an organic panadería in Long Beach, California, specializing in pan and pan dulce made with masa, madre, a natural leaven sourdough starter. Arturo was conceived of the dream to be a baker and have a bakery a couple of years ago, and he manifested this goal by seeking out, going on kind of a pilgrimage around the country to meet bakers and to learn about the craft of baking on a wood-fired oven. And now he has a flourishing bakery in his town of Long Beach, California. I was grateful that Arturo took the time out of his schedule to talk to me. Without further ado, I'm going to go to my interview with Arturo Enciso of Gusto Bread. Welcome to the Well-Seasoned Librarian podcast. I am Dean Jones, the host. Today, I'm interviewing Arturo Enciso of the Gusto Bread, a panadería orgánica in Long Beach. Arturo, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm really glad to have you on the program. I'm really excited after reading about you and doing research on you. I'm very excited to talk to you. I myself just got a grain mill the other day, and I'm really excited to get to start using it. And I know that you've had that experience yourself. So you began your bakery in 2013 when you began using a wood-fired oven and milling your own grains. How did that begin for you?
So that was, I had moved on to this property in 2013, which shared a garden with the homeowner. And I lived in the back apartments, and there was a wood-fired oven constructed before I had moved on to the site. So when I was living there, it just was an oven that really drew my attention, and I started seeking folks who knew about how to use an oven like this and books. So that led me to one book in particular, From the Wood-Fired Oven by Richard Miskovich, that I really studied and practiced every chance I got.
Was it tough to kind of get the hang of it?
No, you just, as long as you have the time, you have a whole day to do it. I didn't find it challenging. I just found it like it requires a lot of patience, a lot of waiting. Bread takes time, and then fire takes time to build and to burn. So it's more patience than anything.
Your journey to bread baking led you to Galicia, Spain, where you worked in a co-op to learn about traditional baking. Can you tell us about this time and what it was like for you?
Yeah, so one of my siblings lives in Spain, and when I went out there I planned a trip to go visit him, and I had been researching wood-fired bakeries, and I came across this village in Spain, in Galicia. It's called Sea. And in that village, there is a cooperative of 16 bakers with the same oven and the same bread that they make that represents the village. And they distribute that throughout Spain, mostly through Galicia, but throughout other parts of Spain. And so I was really excited to go meet them. And so I just went out there and met as many of them as I could and talked to them and saw their ovens and learned about their method of making bread. So it was really fascinating to see a bunch of bakers come together in a small village and make one style of bread for the city that they were in.
Oh my God, that must have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Was there, what kind of breads were being baked? What was the traditional bread that they were baking? Was it like a round boule?
Yeah, it's a boule, but it has like a bun on top. So they form it, and then they kind of twist the bread like with a bun on top. It's nowadays people just call it Galician bread. So you'll see it in some books published. So they just call it Galician bread. Very typical of the area.
That sounds like a wonderful time. Now you've done a lot more traveling too. You've been here in the Bay Area. You went to the East Coast, and you went into Mexico and Oaxaca. Can you tell us about this trip and what you experienced?
Yeah, every chance I got, as soon as I, the first time I baked my first bread and was working with the wood oven, that was my interest. That was my hobby and my passion. So any travels that I would do, I would always seek out bakeries or bakers to go meet. And so I then eventually started becoming trips revolving around only that. Like, let's go out and I'm going to take this week and go out there to meet bakers, right? So I did some of that with my partner Anna. We went to the East Coast a few times, and specifically to visit bakeries in like Maine, Vermont. And then I have a childhood friend from Oaxaca, Mexico, and he always had grown up telling me about his grandfather's bakery in the village, and now that I'm a baker, I was really interested in that. Back in the day, I it just sounded fascinating, but I didn't have a passion for it the way I do now. So I finally told him, I said, I want to go see your grandfather's bakery, and so that was really special too, because it was something that was always in my life that I knew about through my friend. And to go see it in person after all the stories was just incredible.
Were there any kind of specific breads that were being baked there?
Yeah, that was also a village. They're in a village where they make mostly conchas, and the same dough that they take, but they dip it in like in egg whites and then cover it in sesame seeds.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where did you go to any special places here in the Bay Area? Were there any bakeries you want to talk about?
In the Bay Area, yeah, I visited plenty. Of course, the classics, Acme bread. We visited some of the newer bakeries like Tartine, Josie Baker bread. Who else? Me and Anna recently did one trip to Petaluma as well, and we visited some bakeries out there.
Oh yeah,
One House Bakery in Benicia, they're really awesome too. Yeah.
I love all. Yeah, those are all the great ones. I love Acme. They had their schoolyard bread knocks my socks off. I want to figure out how they're doing that one day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned Richard Miscavige of the King Arthur Company. In his book, The Wood-Fired Oven. Let's talk about that and how that inspired you when you initially read it. Like, what kind of inspired you about that book?
I think Richard is a really great writer. I think his style of writing really spoke to me because probably because of his approach about making it not only about baking but also a wood-fired oven, and that where a lot of other books were just more about hydration and like certain unique grains, where I think Richard's was a little more quirky in a way because it had that wood-fired element.
Yeah.
But I love that about it. It's really spoke to me, and the amount of knowledge he goes in depth about ovens in general was just really fascinating to me. So I think it made me at this, passionate about ovens at the same time as much about bread. So I
What
think
was
that's
it?
what I loved about it.
What was it like getting to work with him after all that time?
It was an honor. I mean, so I took his 3-day baking course when I happened to be in Vermont after taking, this was in, I think, 2016, maybe early 2017. And I was out there for actually because I wanted to relocate to the East Coast. I was thinking about that, considering moving there to work for some bakeries. And actually during that time, I spent a month out there and realized at the end of it that it was actually after Richard's class, I realized I'm going to come back to Southern California to Long Beach, where I had been baking, and actually start Gusto Bread, which hadn't really occurred to me beforehand. It was really, I think, all that time I spent out there giving that a shot. But Richard's class was incredible. We did a class of breads of the world. So we made like Cuban bread, Jewish deli rye. We made, what other breads did we make? Oh, pita bread.
Nice.
And like a sandwich loaf, like a classic, like a Pullman loaf. So So yeah, it was really awesome to try so many different breads that like I had on my own. Some of these are in his book, but to do them with him was really special.
I mean, it would just be amazing, I think, to have some mentoring. I think most of us don't really have anybody that can kind of show us the ropes. And I think it'd be really great to be able to have somebody kind of give you pointers and tell you, how to do it better. Now,
Hmm.
about the same time, you and your partner, Anna, started baking in your new home and building a baking community. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so after that trip, and I had realized, oh wow, I'm going back to Southern California. I have this vision now to just start baking for myself in a way that I hadn't been, and putting myself out there with the community. So we had found this really awesome cottage just right up the street from where we used to be, and that already I saw the layout of the home, and I knew exactly where I could place the ovens and set up the bakery model. So so we did that, and that was we had already kind of started building like a newsletter and writing to locals once a week. So we started baking once a week out of this new home, and that grew into 2 days a week, and then eventually some cafes and restaurants. So over the course of a couple of years, we ended up getting really busy, and eventually opening once a week on Sunday, so that people could come experience walking into this space that we had created, and enjoying breads in the garden or things fresh out of the oven.
Now, you've had a lot of community support from your baking at home. And then in 2020, you're able to open your Panderia Organica Gusto bread. And
Mhm.
that's been a really big hit in your community. Can you talk about that a little bit? What that was like?
Yeah, so doing the cottage bakery model and seeing that grow was was really wonderful, and it just made us be like, realize, okay, this eventually is gonna we're growing out of this space, and so we need to start planning for the future. And that's when we started piecing together our idea for a storefront and lining up everything that's needed for that, getting financed for it, learning about all the equipment you would need to open a bakery, and so started talking to a lot of specialists for bakery build outs and stuff, and that's a whole project. So we spent a good amount of time working on that while also baking out of that home. And yeah, and then in 2020 it all kind of lined up. We had it all um, fully funded, and like the right equipment that we needed. And this space that we're in now on 4th Street here in Long Beach just came to us at the right time, and so we just worked on that during the pandemic, and opened it August 2020. And honestly, I had no idea how much support we would have. So it's really overwhelming, the amount of support we've had.
This episode of the Well Seasoned Librarian podcast is sponsored by the Culinary Historians of Northern California, a Bay Area educational group dedicated to the study of food, drink, and culture in human history. To learn more about this organization and their work, please visit the website at www.chnorcal.org. I can imagine you've been a real touchstone in your community, especially with the quarantine where people aren't getting out as much and they're just trying to stay local and stuff like that. I imagine that your bakery is kind of a beacon in the community. Do you get a lot of positive feedback from people about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to bake at the cottage and then go to the farmers market. So I would meet a lot of these locals, and I think every step of the way they saw me there, and then they see me at the storefront, and the whole growth. I think people are really proud that they've kind of been there or supported me since day one, and that does mean a lot to me. And I think that's why we are a little community of passionate bread people here in Long Beach.
Now, you talked about in your information on your website about your commitment to authentic baking and your, as well as diversity and local ingredients. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You have a dedication to authentic baking and also to diversity and local ingredients. Can we talk about that a little bit as far as the creation of your bakery and what you wanted to put into it when you thought about it?
Yeah. So again, I think I give credit to like books that I read, like Richard, because Richard did in his book he mentions like this, flowers like spelt and rye, all these and in the way he writes about sourdough and all those things fascinated me early on. So I didn't quite work with yeast right away. I worked with sourdoughs and weird grains, I suppose, like spelt. I sought those out right away, and so I was very familiar with these grains and realized a lot of people weren't. So it was kind of my goal and part of Gusto Bread's identity to like educate people about these grains that are not what do you call it, like I guess commercial crops. They're more specialty, what we call ancient grains.
Yeah.
Their genetics are more ancient, so they offer our bodies more. They're not they're non-GMO, so they're more healthy for us in the ecosystem. And so I was always passionate about that since early on, and getting into the space here, and then creating the vision for Gusto Bread as a panadería orgánica, our identity, and leaning more into my roots and the flavors that I grew up with. I learned about corn and heirloom corn in Mexico and started utilizing that into my breads as well. So that became a big thing for us, as focusing on indigenous ingredients like heirloom maize and oregano native to Oaxaca, and just a lot of beautiful ingredients that are native here to the Americas.
You've got a lot of really amazing things on the menu. Did you have a lot of like deliberation over what you're going to kind of narrow it down to? I noticed you have some things that are pretty much always on the menu, like your California loaf, your seeded loaf, your field loaf. Can we talk about how you decided what you're going to create as kind of a routine item for your bakery?
Yeah, those were really just breads I've been making since the beginning. You know, the California loaf was about highlighting California grain, about California whole wheat. So I would, I source different wheats as they're available in California. Those are stone ground. I've supported grist and toll. I've milled them myself. So that was the beautiful thing about the California loaf is being able to use a percentage of California whole wheat and put that in this bread, and that's always there for someone to try. And the seeded is actually the same dough. We just incorporate seeds into it so that people get that that quality of like a toasty seededness. And then the field loaf was an idea of like blending more grains. So I blended like rye and spelt actually, and that's why I call it a field, because I just imagine like a field of grains coexisting with each other. So that's what that bread's about. It's more hearty. It's got all sorts of, like the more acidic nature of like rye, the soft tender crumb from the spelt, and then the wheat kind of holding it together.
It sounds amazing. I mean, I noticed also you have the panda maize and the nixtamal queen
Mm-hmm.
items that are like using corn. Did you have to find like did you just have to search for a specific type of ground corn for that? Or was that like, were you able to find that locally?
So we get our corn from indigenous farmers in Mexico, and we get the whole corn kernels, and then we from that we get to choose, are we going to mill it dry like a polenta or cornmeal, or are we going to cook it as like nixtamal, which would give us like masa for like a corn dough. So we do both here at the bakery, and I have two separate mills. I have a dry mill and a wet mill.
Can you tell us about some of the items you sell in your store that you have on display for people to purchase besides the baked goods?
Besides the baked goods,
Yeah.
yeah, we have we have our aguas frescas, so our drinks. We have a drink menu that features like horchata, except
Mhm.
we do like oats and rice instead of just rice. And
Oh, nice.
sometimes in typical people mostly put like evaporated milk or condensed milk. We avoid that and we just go rely on the grains, so the oats and the rice. Soak those, blend those with some some spices and sweeten it up. So that's really nice. We do that drink. We do a jamaica too, a hibiscus drink. We get a really special hibiscus flower too from Mexico. Um, that's available seasonally too. It's hard, sometimes it's hard to get year round because it's just so precious. But we
That's a
have
favorite.
that. Yeah, we have café de olla. So it's a Mexican coffee brewed with canela sticks and lightly sweetened. So that's nice too because it's a very it's different for it's versus just like a straight black coffee. It's great for someone to add that spice to it, and it's pretty unique. It's something I grew up with and at home too, and in Mexico when I'd visit my family. Um, we also have like a fridge with items like cake that we make with atole. So it's like a soaked cake that has an atole like a corn like cream at the bottom, and we use a corn whipped ganache on top. And sometimes we'll use seasonal fruits like strawberries. We have butters, jams, and then a lot of retail goods too, like um, like yerba mate, and we have like artisanal goods from Mexico, like cups, handmade clay cups, glass blown uh, glassware, and or yeah, hand blown glassware and things like that.
This just sounds magnificent. I have a friend who is offering us to stay in their home in Long Beach, and I'm just like, I got to get down there. I can't wait to come to your bakery. This just sounds magical. This is really
Thank you.
great. This is wonderful. I mean, so it's really just been a handful of years since you started. How has it felt for you? Has this felt like a dream? I mean, it must have been like you've probably been so busy. Have you had time to really think about it at all?
No, honestly, no. It's every time I think I have these conversations, it reminds me. I think when you're in it, you just forget that it was what your dream. And yeah, I try to think, stop, and just take it all in. But it's kind of been one step at a time too. And now that we are here, because I did have the vision to build the bakery the moment I pulled my first loaf out from the wood oven, but I didn't know really what that meant. And kind of the vision has come together over time, right? And it's evolved, and here we are now. And I think in a way that the dream never ends. It just keeps going.
This is just wonderful. Now, I always like ask this to everybody, but it sounds like you're doing a lot. Is there any like new things coming up that you have coming over the horizon?
I have some ideas. I'd like to uh, work on a book, on a gusto bread cookbook.
Nice.
Um, but I'm not sure. I don't see that like happening this year. But it is in my horizon. I hope to get to it sometime in the next couple of years. Um, Other than that, you're just staying focused on just doing a great job here. Um, and that's it. Yeah, for now.
Well, that sounds great. I'm very impressed by all this. This sounds really wonderful. And like I said, I can't wait to get down to the bakery and see it and be able to get some of these items myself because it just sounds amazing. And I got to get my hands on that cake. That sounds just incredible.
Hmm.
I really want to thank you for being on the program today, and I've loved getting a chance to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That was my conversation with Arturo Enciso of Gusto Bread in Long Beach. If you're ever in the area, stop by and sample some of the wonderful products they make. The cake that was mentioned in the podcast sounds completely delicious. On Friday, we have Mariana Nuno Ruiz and Ian McEnroe here to talk about their book, Dining with the Dead. This is a book about Dios de los Muertos, and there's many recipes, information on how to set up a home altar, and there's lots of gorgeous photographs throughout. Mariana and Ian are a husband and wife team, and they've did such a great job on this book. And I can't wait so you can listen to this really charming and lovely conversation I had with both of them. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and you can listen to our other podcasts this week. If you like our podcast, please spread the word by sharing the links on social media. You can also sign up for our weekly newsletter by going to the links. Our podcast theme song is Talk About Love. It's sung by the band Kitty Cat Fan Club on their label Asian Man Records, who have given permission for its use. You can check them out and other bands on this label by going to the website asianmanrecords.com. Until then, please have a wonderful week and keep cooking.
I've been getting better.